I thought Caitlin's playmaking ability, really kind of got us going. Got into a nice rhythm in that second quarter and scored a lot of points. So.
Professional sports operates on pure market dynamics where old school power brokers constantly clash with game-changing talent that threatens their control. Picture this: a massive corporation or deeply rooted organization like USA Basketball faces something that completely destroys their carefully planned system. What happens next is predictable. Total resistance mode kicks in.
I thought Caitlin's playmaking ability, really kind of got us going. Got into a nice rhythm in that second quarter and scored a lot of points. So
they'll do everything possible to shut down the disruption. The new superstar gets buried behind established players because of tradition, respect, and the whole pay your dues mentality. It's all about proving the existing framework still delivers results. They need everyone to know they're still running the show.
Don't read a lot into, we've talked about this with our players, like the starting lineup's going to change, the rotations are going to change. As a coach, I'm still in fact-finding mode, not in terms of who they are. I know who they are as players, but trying to find some chemistry and see what combinations fit best together.
Here's the reality though. Market forces never lose. You can't keep a game-changing asset locked away indefinitely. At some point, the numbers become so crystal clear and the talent gap grows so massive that these organizations have no choice. They end up facing reporters and cameras, admitting their approach was completely wrong from day one.
And as much as she is dynamic as a scorer, she's one of the most dynamic playmakers in the world as well. And so we just talked about her utilizing all the talent. It's the most talented team she's played on. So imagine being a dynamic playmaker and then all of a sudden you're playing alongside all these other dynamic playmakers and finishers. And so I thought she toggled between, the playmaking and the scoring really well tonight and looked pretty comfortable out there.
Right now, we're seeing this exact corporate meltdown happening with USA Basketball's women's team. Head coach Kara Lawson made what can only be described as a politically charged, controversy-filled choice to keep Caitlin Clark on the bench for her first international appearance. The plan was simple: start the experienced players and show everyone that women's basketball's power structure wasn't going anywhere.
For combinations that fit well, which combinations did you like today?
Well, I kind of already mentioned that group in the second quarter. I thought got into a good rhythm offensively. I think it was Caitlin, KP, Ryan, Monique, and Kiki. I thought we got into a
Caitlin
good
should
flow.
have started. You messed
and when
up.
I say combinations that play well.
The moment competition began, Clark's economic impact demolished that entire strategy. The starters looked sluggish and ordinary, but everything shifted when Clark entered the game. The court spacing changed, the offensive flow transformed, and suddenly you could see what elite basketball actually looks like.
Bruh, at the end of the day, she made a big mistake by not starting Caitlin Clark, and now she's looking like a deer in her headlights. Well, I think, Caitlin Clark and Ryan Howard are just a better look. We just gotta wait and see, and I talked to I don't know that! I'm finna be live in a hot second. We finna talk about this. Caitlin Clark should have been a starter.
During her media session afterward, Lawson felt the weight of every sports journalist watching. They all wanted to hear how she'd explain keeping the most explosive offensive weapon in basketball sitting on the sidelines. What followed was a moment of brutal corporate honesty that nobody expected. Lawson couldn't simply acknowledge Clark played decently. She was forced to admit that Clark's court vision and passing ability was what really kind of got us going. She confirmed the team never found its groove or established any offensive momentum until the second quarter arrived. Want to know who was controlling the offense during that second quarter surge? Not the veteran starters everyone expected to dominate. Caitlin Clark was out there running plays like the elite floor general she's always been. This represents a crushing blow to the WNBA's old school faction. For months, the resistant veteran class pushed this story that Clark was nothing more than a high-volume shooter who takes too many shots and destroys team chemistry. They desperately wanted everyone to believe her playing style wouldn't work when surrounded by other superstars. Kara Lawson just completely destroyed that narrative on the international stage. She directly stated that Clark's playmaking, her passing vision, her ability to process defensive schemes at lightning speed was exactly what made the USA USA basketball offense click. But Lawson, trying to protect her initial coaching decisions, couldn't bring herself to admit making a mistake. When reporters pressed her about substitution decisions and keeping their most valuable player benched, she pulled out one of the most transparent corporate deflection tactics ever recorded. "I'm still in fact-finding mode." That's the sound of an executive realizing they completely undervalued their most important asset. Think about when a company launches a product that bombs with customers, but their backup option immediately breaks every sales record imaginable. The executive doesn't admit failure. Instead, they claim they were collecting information and testing market response. Kara Lawson knows exactly what Caitlin Clark brings to basketball. Everyone on the planet knows what Caitlin Clark represents. She owns every major NCAA scoring record. She dominated the Rookie of the Year conversation. She's the only reason TNT Sports decided to purchase broadcast rights for these FIBA qualifying games. Standing before international media claiming you're still in fact-finding mode about a once-in-a-generation talent who just posted a monster double-double with a plus 35 rating in 12 minutes is insulting to anyone watching. But Lawson's response included one massive admission that she couldn't take back: the starting lineup's going to change. Those 6 words represent complete surrender from USA Basketball's power structure. They attempted to preserve veteran status and prioritize experience over pure, undeniable talent value. The experiment collapsed so dramatically that the head coach immediately promised reporters the rotation would be completely overhauled. The establishment finally understands you can't put restrictions on a supercar and expect to win races. Caitlin Clark isn't a role player or situational weapon you deploy when veterans need breaks. She's the entire foundation of the system. When you put that foundation together with the world's greatest athletes, the results become absolutely devastating for international competition. Lawson, recognizing her fact-finding explanation sounded incredibly weak, felt compelled to explain exactly how Clark's floor presence completely transformed USA Basketball's product. She's one of the most dynamic playmakers in the world. Imagine being a dynamic playmaker, and then all of a sudden you're playing alongside all these other dynamic playmakers and finishers. This is precisely what WNBA veterans have been dreading for over a year. The resistant old guard understood that putting Caitlin Clark with elite Olympic caliber talent, players who could actually run fast breaks, catch her cross-court passes, and finish aggressively around the basket, would instantly revolutionize basketball itself. They knew her assist totals would reach ridiculous levels and completely destroy the narrative about her being an inefficient rookie. That's exactly what happened against Senegal. Clark didn't just put up points, she orchestrated everything like a master strategist, moving defenders with eye fakes, threading impossible passes, and creating easy scoring opportunities for teammates like Monique Billings and Kiki Iriafen. Every single player performed exponentially better just by being on the court with her. Their individual value increased simply because she was in their vicinity. When Lawson mentions playing alongside all these dynamic finishers, she's accidentally exposing how ridiculous the decision to start Chelsea Gray actually was. If you possess the most dynamic playmaker on earth and your roster is loaded with the most elite finishers on earth, the only logical, mathematically sound strategy is connecting them together from opening tip. Anything else represents deliberate sabotage of your own offensive effectiveness. The reporters in that room caught the massive contradiction in Lawson's comments. They noticed the coach praising bench players while desperately avoiding criticism of her starting group. A brilliant reporter completely trapped her with a direct, laser-focused follow-up question. Which combinations did you actually like today? Lawson had nowhere to hide. She couldn't lie or protect veteran feelings. She had to identify the exact group that rescued the game. I kind of already mentioned that group in the second quarter. Caitlin, KP, Ryan, Monique, and Kiki. There's your answer. The absolute permanent truth straight from USA Basketball's head coach herself. The best combination on the floor, the group that created offensive rhythm and manufactured quality shots, the unit that solved defensive puzzles, was entirely built around Caitlin Clark's leadership. Look at exactly who filled that lineup. Kelsey Plum, Ryan Howard, Monique Billings, Kiki Iriafen, and Caitlin Clark. This represents a system built completely on speed, spacing, shooting range, and explosive athleticism. It abandons the slow, grinding, post-focused approach of WNBA traditionalists. This is women's basketball's future, and once that lineup took the court, competition was effectively over. By naming that specific 5-player combination, Kara Lawson implicitly acknowledged that veteran starters failed to execute the game plan. She admitted the hierarchy is fundamentally broken and the traditional approach is completely outdated. This brings us to the explosive, incredibly satisfying conclusion of this corporate drama. The establishment can attempt spinning the story however they want, using phrases like fact-finding mode and chemistry building to disguise their strategic failures. But consumers aren't fooled. Fans see exactly what's happening. They recognize the obvious politics, the fragile veteran egos, and the complete absurdity of keeping the world's greatest player on the bench. One viewer perfectly captured the overwhelming sentiment of the entire global sports audience. She made a big mistake by not starting Caitlin Clark, and now she's looking like a deer in headlights. That represents the raw, uncompromising truth of this situation. Kara Lawson looked like a deer in headlights because she realized in front of international media that she'd made a massive, highly visible corporate blunder. She chose politics over performance and prioritized veteran feelings over optimizing USA Basketball's offensive potential. Now she's completely stuck. If she keeps starting veterans, she risks appearing incompetent as the offense struggles and fans rebel. If she promotes Clark to starter, she officially announces that the veteran era is permanently finished and control has transferred to a 24-year-old. The WNBA establishment is watching this scenario develop while locked in their own bitter labor conflict in Manhattan. Militant veterans are threatening to cancel the 2026 season because they think they're irreplaceable. But they're seeing USA Basketball discover in real time that only one truly indispensable asset exists in the entire sport. Momentum has completely shifted and leverage has disappeared. The old guard tried suppressing the future, but the future simply stepped onto the court, posted a massive double-double in 12 minutes, and forced the head coach to completely rewrite her entire playbook.